Welcome back to Wins, to be determined, whenever this gets out. You know, I know it's not weekly, but we're going to keep making them. They're going to keep coming out, so always stay tuned.
Yes, welcome back, everyone. We know that it's not really Mr. Wins Weekly. It's more like Mr. Wins whenever we feel like it. But we're back. We're ready to talk about some more books, and we'll always be here to give some motivation to those who need it. So, Jack, tell us what book you're talking about today.
So today I got Courage is Calling by Ryan Holiday, and Ryan Holiday is a great author. He based a lot of his books off Stoic philosophy, which is very interesting philosophy, and just the main points that Stoic philosophy follows is it tries to have the individual adhere to four main virtues of wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. And so this book is all about courage. Not only facing your fears, like that's obviously the big one everyone thinks about, but more of kind of courage through adversity, or like what to do when things actually go wrong and you're not just afraid that they will go wrong, and so on. And so, but the chapter I'm getting some quotes from today is called The Courage to Commit, and this chapter really spoke to me a lot, because a lot of nowadays we get a lot of kind of nihilistic attitudes about simple things like school and getting assignments done. And so a big one I heard, especially in high school, is like, oh, we're just like a space like rock, like floating in the middle of nowhere, like none of this like means anything, dude. I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, we're human beings, man. And so people would just like we're more than just spinning in the middle of the universe, you know what I'm saying? And so this kind of speaks to that courage that actually takes to commit to something, especially at this point in the semester, because this is mid-semester. I got my midterms. I have 2 exams on the same day in 2 days from now. And so, yeah, you're stressing, that's difficult, that's adversity, that's challenge. And so, but sometimes you can't just say, fuck it, we ball. You gotta go all in, you gotta really get your mind on the grind set, and carry through. And that's what this chapter's about. So let me read you Ryan Holiday's interpretation of that. The story of Theodore Roosevelt, the biographer Herman Hagedorn wrote, is the story of a small boy who read about great men and decided he wanted to be like them. You can detect just a hint of a sneer, can't you? Roosevelt actually believed in himself, in stories, in something larger than himself. Then and now, plenty of people found that absurd, even dangerous. It's even in the Bible. When I became a man, I put away those childish thoughts. Charles de Gaulle was similarly mocked. He earnestly believed in the grandeur of France. He thought there was such a thing as destiny. France is a great power, he said, over and over again. The preposterous claim when she lay prostrate at the mercy of the Allies on the one hand and passive collaboration with the Nazis on the other. You read some of his quotes and you wince. The cynical streak in us runs deep. We want people to grow up, get real, get over the fairy tales. But without this belief, without the courage to go on, despite the condensation, yeah, we can cut this out. Yeah, but I'll
there
get
a typo?
It's not a typo, but
we can add this in the bloopers.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. It's like, wait, how the fuck do I say that word?
Condensation?
Condensation. Does that sound right?
Is that what it's spelled like?
Yeah, condensation. Condescension. See, I know what condescending is, but that's a weird way to put it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're
condescension.
good.
Nah, that's funny.
Fail. English? Impossible. Alright, we gotta continue.
Yeah, let's
go.
The condescension, the criticism, the futility of it. Where would we be? Certainly, if Charles de Gaulle had cared less about France, he'd have risked less to save it. It was his sincere, almost cringe-worthy faith in destiny that propelled him to create history. He willed himself into the role of a great man and reformed a great nation in the process. For Roosevelt, caring was a wellspring of courage. It's what motivated him to invite Booker T. Washington to the White House despite the hesitation. It's why he charged up the hills to face the enemy, why he refused to buckle under the pressure of corporate interests, and why he resisted the haughty superiority and indifference of his social class. As General Mattis said, cynicism is cowardice. It takes courage to care. Only the brave believe, especially when everyone else is full of doubt. They will laugh at you. Losers have always gotten together in little groups and talked about winners. The hopeless have always mocked the hopeful. The scared do their best to convince the brave that there's no point in trying. Since the time of sophists, academics have, for whatever petty reason, used their considerable brains to muddy the waters rather than clear them. This is the fog that the courageous have to cut through. The stony road we walk is not lined with cheerleaders, but temptresses who want to lead us astray and convince us to quit. You're far more likely to have someone try to convince you that this doesn't matter, that it won't make a difference, than you are to be threatened or intimidated out of trying. It takes strength to stay pure, to keep caring, to be explicit and sincere about what polite company seems to believe is gouch. Be not afraid of greatness, Shakespeare said. Let it enter your blood and spirit, fight for it. Nihilism is for losers. Yeah, there's a lot of powerful statements in there, and for those of you who don't know who Charles de Gaulle is, in obviously World War II, the Nazis took over France, and the puppet state of France, those things called Venice, France, or something like that, they had to, they actually gave Nazis troops and support because, they were taken over, and there's nothing they could do but give them support, or, Nazis would have killed everyone. So, but Charles de Gaulle, he actually actively fought that puppet government, and he went to London, and he eventually reformed all France into a much better nation than just a Nazi puppet. And so, and obviously, if you knew at the time, like what happened to France, just completely the once great nation just fell in 2 weeks, and for one guy to be like, no, we're actually still a great nation, even though our country's destroyed, and we will come back strong, that's just crazy amount of just intense willpower and courage to really make that happen. He was a great general and political leader of one of the greatest in the 20th century, I'd say, and so very cool person. And so was Theodore Roosevelt, heading the progressive movement, and his courage in the Spanish-American War and stuff like that. It's all very great. But obviously as college students, we're not fighting a war, we're not fighting Nazis, no one's gonna take over your nation, or you're not fighting for that, but even to get good grades is a battle, and so there's a lot more things going on than just trying to study or trying to get good grades. Or sometimes you have a bad professor, sometimes you have no motivation, sometimes you're filled with distractions. It's like, oh, what do I do? I got midterms, I got 10 tests, I got all this homework. It's it's easy for people to say, back to that space rock thing. It's we're just floating in the universe. But what this chapter is saying is no, you have to go in the opposite direction. You have to go, even though this is hard, even though this looks bleak, I have to try my best anyway. And, at the end of the day, if you try your best, it's going to work out the best that way, And a lot of the best Wednesdays I've had, I've woken up and I have, on my Wednesdays this semester, I have class from 12:30 to 7:10, and I have quizzes, homeworks, and all this stuff in that entire day is crammed in. So when I wake up in the morning, sometimes it's hard for me to be enthusiastic, but then I remember, I'm it's Wednesday, today is gonna be a great day, even though it's gonna be super busy. It's I gotta get through this, and whenever I get through it at the end of the day, it's man, I can look back at it, it's I got through that, and that joy of just I got through that is so much more meaningful than just saying, oh, nothing matters, we're all just monkeys anyway, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I want people to hear.
Well, you said it better than I or anyone else could have. I didn't need to say anything, but I did come up with one question while you were reading your passage. So, going back to last week, because I noticed a lot of the stuff that you talked about was similar to last week's book from Robert Greene and the story of General Patton as he moved through the battlefield during World War I straight into the German artillery. Right. And you talk about leaders like Charles de Gaulle and Theodore Roosevelt. Do you think General Patton kind of went through a similar mindset of I'm going to do this because I'm destined to be great, and this greatness is what's going to push me further?
Oh yeah, his whole family, he had a family line of American heroes. He's I'm the next in my family line. This is my not only my destiny, but my family's destiny to do this. And so maybe, a lot of people nowadays don't necessarily think of a family line, because back in the day there's people like, oh, I'm Frederick the 15th or something like that. That's not as common nowadays, but even now, a lot of these people believed in personal destiny. I think I read somewhere else that like the one attribute that's common among all like millionaires and in Fortune 500 companies, like CEOs and stuff, like they all believe in a personal destiny. So even that belief of just that my own life has meaning, like that will get you so much further in everything you do in life. And so and obviously all these great generals had that, and so I think it's a very powerful mindset to have. It's much more powerful and helpful than just saying, nothing matters, like I don't matter, this doesn't matter, but saying like, no, my life does matter because I have something important to do. Like it's completely changes how you act in the world, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And having that mindset can get you only so far that you don't even realize it, but a lot of people tend to develop a more passive mindset, kind of going back to that nihilism, or maybe not even nihilism, but they're just like, oh, I'm here.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Just
being
chilling.
Passive, like, I'm just balling. Like, it's like, no, you gotta get yourself together and like do something, and that's when your life really takes form, and that's really powerful.
Yes. So if someone is going through that mindset, they have a more passive outlook on life, how would you approach that? What would you say to someone who kind of has that, and how would you just kind of convince them to go the opposite way?
Yeah, I think for me, what I kind of started doing is obviously I read, but I think especially reading history, like we read all these historical stories and just like world history, and you kind of see like similar like human stories playing out of like adventurers crossing the Great Sea, discover America, or all the war stories of like Patton, Charles de Gaulle, but also go back further to like Roman Empire stories and like all these ancient people, and like people like 5,000 years ago, they even believed in their personal destiny. That was like their main philosophy. And so reading history and seeing these common stories of people's miraculous stories of where they started, like in their lives, like when they were young, like they had like no significance, but then they rose to be people would talk about now, like there's this philosopher Epictetus, who he was just a complete slave. Like he didn't even have human rights. Like obviously everyone in America, we have human rights. This guy was a slave, but even he's like a very prominent philosopher in Western thought, and people still think about his writings, and he thought in a personal destiny and stuff. And so he went from slave to someone we talk about like 2,000 years later. And so kind of like reading history and seeing like personal destinies play out over time, over centuries, and to present day, like that would really like kind of make you realize like, oh yeah, like even though I can't really see that far into the future, like the now really matters.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
The way to be. But other than that, I don't really know if there's anything else we need to talk about. So, thank you so much for joining us again.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you everyone. Good luck with your midterms. Get through this season. Get through semester. Get through the midterms. You all got it. I know it. It's
yes.
Winning semester.
Absolutely. We wish all of you the best of luck during midterm season, and we will see you next time on Mr. Wins Weekly.